This is a response video to two things, primarily Stickam conversation and a Matt video. Both provoked a thought. So yeah, late last night, at the end of the Stickam conversation, I was arguing with a couple of these primitive types. You know, we think we're going to save the world, and everybody teaches each other how to stone grind wheat or something. You know, really unrealistic. You know, that somehow, yeah, we can feed all the people on Earth. You know, we really can physically do that, and they don't really get the equation, which is, you know, people need, you know, life isn't just bread alone, so to speak. Even if we could feed the world, what good it would do them, so they can live in abject poverty and in misery, parasite-ridden. I mean, come on. It's really not just about survival, morons. There's this thing called quality of life. It's not just about quantity. And they really don't buy the whole argument that we can just unsustainably grow. I mean, they think we can. They really don't get it, that we can't. We have to change our behavior. And they just say it's too draconian to tell people they can't have 10 kids anymore. You know, it's just a horror. I mean, that's like, you know, Nazi-esque kind of rhetoric to say that we have to have rules about how many children people can have. It's just, unacceptable. So we really are doomed, because, you know, even people in civilized countries can't be rational. So there's really probably no point in me discussing this, because, yeah, they can't get it. You know, even people you'd almost call reasonably intelligent can't get it. But anyway, moving on. You know, Matt was sort of bringing up Ayn Rand, Darwinism theories and such, and I don't know, I didn't hear him really supporting that, but there was a lot of comments on his board like somehow he was turning into a Randian, and I don't think that's happening. I mean, he did support Ron Paul, but, you know, whatever. So anyway, this whole idea that, you know, if you look at the economy, it's just a system. That's all it is. These are just systems. And so, of course, you could say, yes, let's embrace the selfishness. And somebody could certainly argue that that's the quickest way to progress, because there's nothing's entered into the equation but pure greed, and that will motivate people. But it'll also, if it's not tempered with anything else, it will create exploitation. So yeah, it's the shortcut. All right, it's not the qualitatively superior road. It's the direct route, where you're not worried about the cost. It's the, you know, you get the ends and you don't worry about the means. And we did that. I mean, we've basically acquired civilization through a lot of brutality, wars, slavery, exploitation. I mean, it's of deprivation. I mean, we just exploit people's deprivation, their need to feed their family. We've done all this shit, and that's how we've gotten where we've gotten, and that has created progress, technology. But those gains are starting to become, there's a point somewhere where the progress is converted into something else. You go into that, you hit that 1984 wall, where all of a sudden the technology now is just being used not to make people's lives better, but to allow people to exploit each other in even more grotesque and ways. And then this equation no longer works. Pure greed is not the solution, because it leaves the masses in shit, and the elite comfortable. But psychiatrically, you know, psychology is completely extravagant and excessive. They become completely dependent on bullshit. So qualitatively, they're not even happy. I mean, they can't even get it right. They can't even live ordered and sensible and satisfied lives. You know, they're the ones who are overdosing on drugs and, you know, can't seem to park their car properly. I mean, they have a lot of problems, even though they have it all, so to speak, quote unquote. Look, so the real game here is understanding our human psychology, and that what we need to do is create systems that have incentives, but that also have protections, you know, rights and responsibilities. I mean, it's not that complicated. And so pure capitalism is nonsense. Anarchy is nonsense. You have to have a system, a disciplined system. You have to have a game with rules. People don't like this analogy, but that's what it is. It's a game. And if you want to have a good game, you have rules and an umpire, and you have a system in place that prevents people from cheating and fucking the game up. And that's all it is. It's just a game. And the game now, I think we're at the point where we can understand that some things about human nature are just completely corrosive. They're destructive to our future. We waste a ton of resources on complete nonsense. And so I sort of got into this sexist argument because, you know, even though I was pointing out there are extremes on both sides. I mean, you can blame males for pointless, gratuitous violence in our society. Most hunting is male-dominated. You know, most violence, most sports, you know, that kind of frivolous nonsense is completely a male-indulgent, primarily a male indulgence. And then the other side of the story, you got women, and you got all these, you know, all this touchy-feely bullshit that gets us in huge trouble. A bunch of women feeding their lap dog $7 a pound, you know, filet turkey or something, you know, when people are starving in the world, because they need some love, you know, and they have kids they can't care of because they need unconditional love. They need something to love them. You know, we can't put old people out of their misery because somebody, oh, I love them too much. And it's just, there's a lot of bullshit, and our psychology is just littered with this bullshit. So there's a lot of things we can do by just changing our psychology. And yeah, who wants to go down to some, you know, we don't want to become completely uninteresting. We don't want to be, you know, take all the fun out of life. But we can just take out of a lot of the bullshit out of ourselves, a lot of the stupid, idiotic addictions. The drives, desires, needs, obsessions, whatever, that we really don't need to be happy and to be comfortable and to live a creative and interesting life.
And the other side of the equation is that we've got to create systems that more efficiently you know, create a mechanism for us to get to be as productive as we possibly can as individuals, to all make a contribution, to use our time in ways that have lasting and important contribution. I mean, not just something that's, you know, for the moment. You know, let's quit doing paintings on sidewalks in chalk that get washed away in a week. I mean, there's just sort of imbecilities that are built into the structure of our society. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's just a lot of labor that's wasted. And so let's be more productive, but let's be more productive in a way that gains for the individuals who creates the productivity, not just for the monarchs who control the capital. So we can do all that. I mean, I got the solutions videos, and I've done some others. I got to put the stuff together, because there are all kinds of ways to organize a system. It doesn't have to be socialism, it doesn't have to be communism, it doesn't have to be capitalism. It can be something more creative. And all we have to do is think on it a little and argue it a little, and the solutions are there. But people just fall into these stupid camps, these draconian religions of, yes, okay, the DNA knows best, let's do what the DNA says. And no, the DNA doesn't know best. Our native drives and desires are bullshit, and we've got to do something to temper them. Or we've got to find mechanisms where we can satisfy them in an efficient way. And we've got to acknowledge that those needs exist in these 6.5 billion people. They don't just exist in the 1% of the elitists who are living interesting and comfortable lives. No, they exist in all of these people. And if we're leaving 90% of the players are getting destroyed in the game, it isn't a system worth maintaining. It isn't an existence worth the price being paid for it. And so let's get back to that point, because everybody keeps measuring by these stupid standards. I mean, survival. They talk about, well, the human race will survive. Yeah, and if 4 billion people die in the next 20 years, it's okay. I mean, it's all right. It's not a problem. That's acceptable. I mean, I'm going to use that word again. That's acceptable. It's, you know, for me, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for us to go back to the fucking trees. It's not acceptable for us to forsake our intelligence and say, oh no, we're better off just being monkeys, you know, being caught up in the moment. And that's the ideal place for consciousness to exist. So it can just struggle for this thing called survival, like a dog chasing its tail. It will mean nothing. It'll just be a cycle of pointless pursuit, generation after generation after generation. I mean, we really have done this human thing a zillion times, okay? It's been a lot of human beings in the history of life on Earth. And a lot of it's been enduring a lot of suffering, And you people are real comfortable with that. I'm not. I'm not comfortable that this equation says, yes, this is a good thing. I mean, we really have to work to make it a good thing. We have to at least make it a neutral thing. And I don't think, if you add it all up, that we've produced anything. You know, we've got a nice video of us chasing our tail, but we don't have much else to show for our existence here. We got some kind of, you know, deteriorated and wrinkled looking pyramids and shit, but what else do we got to show for ourselves? A lot of chaos, a lot of noise, a lot of filth. You know, we're really not doing anything truly elegant. We did land on the moon, but you know, even that's getting dusty. So yeah, life's got to be, so we got to understand our psychology, that's all. I mean, it's about our psychology. It's about feeding the need. And let's find creative and efficient ways to feed the need.